So how does the empire rebuild itself, restabilize, because it doesn't collapse there, right?
Yes.
It stays, it survives. There's interesting low points for the empire where it still survives.
This is one of them.
And that is as interesting as the survival at the top and the flourishing survival at the bottom is also super interesting. So what happens? How does it kind of stabilize?
Very slowly. This is a painful process, and it takes them centuries, you could say.
Yeah.
First, you got to stop the bleeding. Just try to hold the line. It takes them decades to hold a line. Like, they get pummeled by the Arabs for decades in the 7th century, until finally by 660s, 670, they finally begin to beat them on land, and hold the line on the sea. And so we now have an investment in fleets. Eventually you get the Greek fire, which is the flamethrowers. And when the Arabs try to take Constantinople, these attempts are defeated like twice. And that ensures the survival of the Roman state in some form.
How were the flamethrowers used?
Yes, this is an interesting question. We're still kind of debating that.
Oh, it's not fully understood.
Well, it's a state secret. They didn't want this getting out, so they kept it pretty well. The fact that we're debating it will tell you that they were pretty good at keeping secrets. So possibly through a pressure valve, right? So you have this flammable compound whose preparation and components is also a state secret. So there's there's a corps of engineers that prepares this and deploys it. And it's possibly through a heated, pressurized container with a spigot, let's say, that unleashes this thing through a nozzle, and it's lit and basically spews flaming napalm on other ships. And it will continue to burn even when it's on the water, right, on the top. So, like, you can't, like, swim away or anything. So it's this very, very destructive weapon. Terrifying. They used it against Vikings, too. This is much later. So once the Vikings show up, like when they would attacked Constantinople in the 940s, then again in the 1040s, the Romans used Greek fire fleets to just incinerate them. And that'll teach Vikings. Yes, if you're in that situation, you'd rather serve under the emperors than attack them.
And so this is a kind of nuclear weapon level state secret.
They even had it in hand grenade form.
This is a real thing?
Oh, yes.
Hand grenade form.
Yes. So it's like a clay container with the compound, and it has like some sort of fuse that you light on the outside and you throw it. Now, you can throw it against people, but it's not going to be that effective. Maybe you burn a person, whatever. You just wasted a hand grenade for one person. It's most effective against things like siege engines. So you throw that on a wooden frame, and
This is incredible. So this is one of the things that's finally stabilized, stopped the bleeding from a military perspective.
Yeah, eventually. Now remember, they've pulled the armies back into Asia Minor, so they're beginning to defend and fortify Asia Minor. Now you have to find ways to pay and support and feed all of these soldiers, and this is a whole it's a wrenching administrative readjustment. But they go through it. It takes them a long time. Eventually, they emerge with a different kind of strategic logistical system.
So it's a smaller, harder core of the empire.
That's right. Very militarized.
Very militarized. And then in the 8th century, the second Arab siege of Constantinople, that somehow fails.
In the early 8th century, yes, that was the second siege.
Yeah, the early 8th century. So why did it fail? Can you tell the story of that siege? That was really the empire hanging by a thread.
Yes, but it happened to have a very competent man in charge. This is Leo III, and he's an emperor who he's a usurper. He's just seized power. They knew that this massive Arab attack was coming. And so it's quite possible that the Roman elites, preferred to put someone capable in power at that moment. The city was very well prepared. I encourage people in the audience to go and read the sources that we have for that. You can find many accounts of it online. It was just very, very well done. He also had Bulgar allies. So these are the Bulgars who had just crossed the Danube just a few years earlier, actually, and settled south of the Danube, where eventually Bulgaria emerged. So he had Bulgar allies, and he used the Greek fire very, very strategically. He used his own fleet. He contained the Arabs to certain places where they kind of starved and wore them down. It's just very well done.
From a military perspective.
Well,
was it the walls, the navy, the weather, the diplomacy, just good luck that helped Constantinople hold?
I don't see much role for good luck there. I mean, I think he had it all pretty planned out. It was all of the elements that you mentioned. And yeah, he just deployed them very, very astutely. And went on to rule after that for another 20-some years. And his son continued. They formed a dynasty. We call it the Isaurian dynasty, though they were not from Isauria.